Nice. So we're down on Wall Street, as you can see for today.
Sorry.
Nice. In COVID monopolies, this has been an issue for quite a while since the whole pandemic started and the vaccines that were coming out, especially in relationship to how the vaccines weren't being provided worldwide, also regarding trip waivers. So it's important that people are still highlighting this fact. And people will be speaking today as well on this.
Do we have these tombstones now?
It's definitely a good place when you're talking about who's making money off of this and controlling a lot of it. As with most things, it always comes down to Wall Street.
It's a multi-billion-dollar business.
That's it.
It's more money spent on COVID than spent on AIDS, spent on cancer.
And
What a
someone's
coincidence.
benefiting off everyone else's
You
suffering.
get 30
You know.
billion, 30 billion from Pfizer, 30 billion from Moderna. Nobody give you $100 a shot. Fuck's $100?
Yeah. Hey, good. I've been seeing you around. But
every once in a
you're
while.
in the middle of doing your stuff. So I know sometimes I'm just like, you're like I am. Sometimes like, I said hi and you didn't like, just too focused on what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, sometimes that happens if you're distracted.
It's true. So how have you been?
I'm good, pretty much same old.
Yeah. No, but it's good. It is good. Yeah, I'm getting back into the habit again of posting, combing through to find out what's going on, not just Twitter, but Facebook and other stuff, taking the time, and I do post it up. So when I post it up, it's for any of you media people doing stuff in addition to me, because sometimes I'm just live streaming, even though I do photos, you're more likely to get video out. Even if I'm doing videos, you're probably going to get it out quicker than I.
Maybe, not with the live streams though.
Well, just regular like news wise, you're likely to Eric's with the photo.
Sign. Hey. Oh, it's okay. I have my cameras. I know everybody does. You guys got us outnumbered.
Well, it's the way of saying it's like, here's these events. If you're looking to cover some stuff that might be, I try to put it out
I
there.
saw that protest you went to with the Human Resources Council.
Down at City Hall.
Yeah, that was awesome. I didn't know about that. When I saw your stream, I was like,
I only went there to get coffee, and then I see one or two people. Okay, they're doing something at the park, and then the numbers.
All right, thanks everyone for being here.
And then coming back into the park after. June was doing something in there with the smaller. It wasn't a live stream, but I did get some quick video, I suppose, because I'd been covering some of their stuff before.
yeah, that stuff is popular.
I think if you look around in New York these days,
Yes.
it doesn't look like we're entering year 3 of the pandemic. We've lifted mask mandates, we've lifted vaccine mandates, and we're being rushed back into the office. And why is that? Right? I think we know why that is. It's because time and time again, this country puts profits over people, right? And that's why we're here. We're on Wall Street. We're outside the stock exchange, financial center of the country, because we know that this pandemic will not end just because we're tired of it, right? It's not going to end just because the weather's getting warmer, our favorite bands are coming back to town. That's not how this works. The pandemic is not going to end until this country takes global action to end it. And that's why we're here today. Thank you all for being here. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I think 2 years of pandemic is 2 years too many, right? Is that right? Yeah. I think 6 million global deaths is 6 million too many, right? Yeah. And I think 1 million deaths in America to COVID, preventable deaths, is 1 million too many. Is that right? That's right. And we know those numbers are underreported, right? We know those numbers are higher. A recent study said it could be up to 18 million globally. And you sit with that number for a second, how staggering that is. And on top of that, people are coming down with long COVID, people are being disabled, people managing mental illness, overdose. We don't know the scope of how bad this is yet. What we do know is there's something we can do about it, right? We can take action right now to end this pandemic. We have all the tools we need to end it. So I'm going to toss it over to Emily, who's going to talk through what that looks like and what we're asking President Biden to do.
So we're out here today because we're demanding that world leaders come together now to end the pandemic by standing up to Big Pharma, standing up to these COVID monopolies that have kept the pandemic moving forward when it could have been stopped a long time ago. We're asking the U.S. government and the Biden administration to provide decisive global leadership to make that happen now, and international bodies like the UN, the WHO, and the World Trade Organization. We're also asking Congress to adopt the End the Pandemic resolution, which would temporarily suspend all of the intellectual property rights that pharmaceutical companies hold, which are stopping the vaccine from being mass produced around the world and getting everyone vaccinated right away. And lastly, we are asking to invest in pandemic preparedness so that this doesn't happen again. So that next time we know what to do. Like I said, today is a grim moment, right? We're staring down year 3 of the COVID pandemic. Like you said, the official number of people who have died from COVID-19 across the world is 6 million. But that's the official number. We think that the actual number is about 18 million people. thinking about 18 million mothers, brothers, friends, lovers, really irreplaceable people. 18 million irreplaceable people have been lost because of government neglect, because of pharmaceutical greed, and it's heartbreaking. And like Danae said, we don't know the whole extent of the trauma that this has caused individuals in our society, but it goes deep, right? I want to also talk about how many of these deaths are happening in low and middle income countries. While our government is trying to get us to go back to normal and pretend, take 5 days instead of the 10 days. Come back to work, it's fine, you can be here, you don't have to wear a mask. People in the global south are vastly under-vaccinated because of pharmaceutical greed and the lack of being able to get vaccine doses out. So we're looking at about 13% of people in low and middle income countries have received one dose, have received a first dose of this vaccine. While people in the US and in other wealthy countries are being told to go back to normal. So we stand here today in sorrow and in solidarity with those fighting for global healthcare justice amidst an ongoing pandemic that is not yet over. And I would like to invite everyone to take a moment of silence to remember all of the people that we have lost to COVID. If you feel compelled to say the name out loud of a loved one that you have lost, I do also invite you to do that.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you for grounding us in that moment. We're going to get some speakers up right now. And first I want to bring up Giovanna from Right to Health Action.
Students at Union, one tomorrow. What better than bombs raining down on fucking rain? What you said? 14 days. I gotta leave.
My name is Giovanna. I'm an activist for Right to Health Action here in New York. 2 years ago, in March of 2020, my amazing father, Clifford Berganza, contracted COVID-19 while working as an essential worker in New York City. While the rest of the country shut down, he put on his boots and went to work, picking up extra shifts to cover the mounting demand for household items and food that occurred as a result of panic buying. His job was to stock the shelves at Target, and being who he was, he happily picked up more shifts to support our family. My father, who immigrated to this country in the 1980s from Goa, India.
Yeah, wide, low, and majestic. Wide, low, and majestic. Hey, what's up? Wide, low, and majestic. Yeah.
My father, who immigrated to this country in the 1980s from Goa, India, and worked primarily alongside other immigrants. These were people that didn't have the luxury of working from home or staying home when they were sick. For the first week, he refused to believe that he was sick. He believed that he was only 63 years old and healthy, living in what he thought was one of the most well-resourced countries in the world. I spent hours calling around to different clinics to try to get him a COVID testing appointment. This was still early in the pandemic when it was nearly impossible to get a test. And it's still impossible in many areas of the world.
And then for lunch you had a hair
When I was finally able to get one a few days later, it was too late. He arrived at the testing site, and although he was well appearing, his oxygen was drastically low. The last time I saw my father was seeing him smile and wave from the stretcher as he was wheeled into an ambulance. The hospital itself was a war zone. We didn't know if he was dead or alive. On the fourth night, I received a call to let us know that he'd been intubated. my heart sink. At this moment, it became very real to me that my father was going to die. And 3 days later, on April 13th of 2020, I got the call that still haunts me to this day.
Or at the very
They
least,
sent him to the
at the
funeral
very
home
least,
2 weeks later in a cardboard
pretend
box,
the signs aren't there.
which we weren't
It's
allowed
like if you
to
catch
open.
a sign, okay, you
And
call
for
a
someone
sign.
that was so
That's
loved,
life. You don't
he didn't
make
deserve
the
to be
sign
discarded
your
like this.
lodestone.
After my
I
father
did
died, it became increasingly clear that he didn't just die because of where we were located, but because of who he was as an essential worker of color in New York City. Why did my dad die? What separated those who lived versus those who died? The answer is always money. Why did my dad die alone at a community hospital after being given hydroxychloroquine, while patients at select private hospitals were given remdesivir clinical trials? And now this wealth disparity is playing out on a global scale. There are billions of people in the global south who are still waiting for their first COVID vaccines. And as they wait, the virus continues to devastate their unvaccinated communities and mutate into deadlier variants. When will this cycle end? We can't afford to wait any longer. Congress needs to approve $17 billion for global COVID funding this week. This is our only chance this year to ensure that we can meet the global vaccine promise of vaccinating the world by the end of September of this year. 2 years have already gone by and over 18 million people are dead. It's so far from normal. Not a day goes by where I don't think about the fact that my dad's death could have been prevented. Capitalism is the driving force behind extraction of natural and human resources from the global south, resulting in decimation of carbon capturing ecosystems and increased global temperatures through climate change. Vulnerable frontline communities are exposed to new zoonotic threats, as we've seen with increasing frequency over the past few years in the forms of Ebola, Zika, tuberculosis, malaria, and now, of course, COVID. We will only see a pandemic-free world when our leaders invest in a multilateral global fund for pandemic prevention that takes into account over a century of extraction from frontline communities and takes into account the systematic dismantling of capitalism's grip on global economies. My father died senselessly because of a lack of care about what's going on in the other part of the world. And this is at the root of this tragedy. A global pandemic is just that. It's global. It affects everyone, everywhere, and is only preventable when we invest in building resilient healthcare systems and targeting zoonotic diseases at the source. My father loved this country so much, and it kills me every day to know that this could have been prevented if our leaders stepped up. Because of them, I will never hear my father laugh again. He's gone. We have the power to change this narrative for billions of families with lessons we've learned over the past 2 years. So why don't we?
Remember Clifford Berganza. We remember Clifford Berganza. We remember Clifford Berganza. We remember Clifford Berganza.
Thank you, Giovanna, for sharing your story with us. Next up, we have Christian Arusha from Prep for All, a co-founder of Prep for All and the managing director. Christian.
In December 2020, when the first highly effective COVID vaccine was authorized, we all hoped it would mark a turning point towards the end of the pandemic. Surely this time would be different. Surely after the most deadly global pandemic in decades, somebody, somewhere would do the right thing. The US government, other nation states, hell, maybe even the companies themselves would take bold steps to make sure everyone, everywhere could get a vaccine. Yet in the 16 months since then, more people around the world have died from COVID than in the first half of the pandemic. Our own government is urging a return to normalcy, seemingly forgetting the 2 highly contagious and deadly variants we've seen in the last 6 months alone. Until we get vaccines to everyone around the world, the next variant will always be just around the corner. In the 2 years this pandemic has raged, 18 million people have died, and 9 pharma executives have become newly minted billionaires. Shame! Shame! We know what it will take to end this pandemic. We have been fighting for it for over a year now, transferring technology into low and middle income countries, waiving intellectual property rights on vaccines, tests, and therapeutics, investing in publicly owned manufacturing so we are not borrowing or begging or bargaining with greedy drug companies for the vaccines and medications that will save our lives.
That's right.
We can end this pandemic if only we could find the political will to do so. Just this week, on the 2-year anniversary of the pandemic, the U.S. government cut $16 billion in COVID response funding. Instead of standing up to pharmaceutical companies, our government is abdicating its responsibilities and reneging on our social contract. If they aren't going to fight back against pharmaceutical monopolies, we have to be the ones to do it. Nearly 33 years ago, members of ACT UP infiltrated this stock exchange to protest pharma greed. I wasn't even alive yet. In fact, today is my birthday. And I'm here today to celebrate the activist victories we've achieved and honor the fallen who spent their lives fighting for health equity and people over profits. I stand with all of you demanding an end to pharmaceutical monopolies on patents, technology, intellectual property, and active ingredients, and a full engagement with the U.S. government, which is right now shirking its responsibility to mount a robust COVID response. We were here in 1989, and we are here today, and we will be here until we win justice for all people. Thank you. Got me pretty fired up, so let's stay a little bit. Free the vaccine! Vaccinate the world! 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 Vaccinate the world! Alright, we got 2 more speakers. We're bringing up Stephen Amback from the National Health Program.
Against what? Fucking war?
So, I'm Dr. Steve Auerbach. I'm with solidarity against medical epidemiologist with Federal Health Human Services. And I stand here saddened by the failure of the U.S. Department of Health Human Services, President Biden, to follow through on their publicly declared stance to end the TRIPS waiver, but behind the scenes have done nothing for over a year since President Biden made that announcement. Now, some people may say, in the midst of what's going on in Ukraine, why are we here today? Why still talking about COVID vaccine when there's the war? So I do want to say that I personally, speaking for myself, stand against the unprovoked war of aggression by the Putin regime and in solidarity with the people of Ukraine at this tragic time. However, one crisis does not erase another. Billions of people remain at risk for COVID-19. And we know that war, anywhere and everywhere, be it in Iraq or Afghanistan, Yemen, the Horn of Africa, or the Ukraine, war everywhere, anywhere, and at all times impacts the spread of disease, spurs further transmission, it disrupts supply chains, and the political attention is diverted. So to ignore the COVID-19 pandemic benefits nobody, including the suffering people of Ukraine. Now we have an official count of 6 million dead. But as reported in The Economist, a conservative, business-oriented magazine, the real number is closer to 19 million. Looking at excess deaths around the world in this time frame. And let's be clear, despite the failures in the United States, 4 times as many people have died of COVID in the low-income countries than in the rich ones. And let me say, their lives also matter, and their deaths also matter.
That's right.
Now, big farmers already made billions in profits. During the pandemic, the world's 10 richest men saw their fortunes double. 9 new billionaires were created by COVID profiteering. Meanwhile, the pharmaceutical companies are continuing to record over $1 million in profits an hour. Isn't that enough? I mean, yes, they need to make their profits, fine. They made them. Now it's time to get on with vaccinating the world. Pharma's monopoly grip on the COVID vaccines and tests and treatments continue to put the world at risk for the next deadly variant. There will be another variant, and there will be another virus. These pandemics were predicted by my fellow public health professionals. So today we call on the world leaders to stand with the people and not with Big Pharma. 12 months ago, as I said, President Biden made a public statement in favor of the TRIPS waiver and has proceeded over the last year to do nothing. Since then, despite those public platitudes, no actions have been taken. We call on the United States and Canada and Germany and the UK and the rest of the EU to show true solidarity for all the people of the world, end the COVID vaccine patents, share manufacturing, and funding global production. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Steve, so much. And last but absolutely not least, we have Speaker Gabriel San Emeterio, who is the National Organizer for Strategies for High Impact and its National Network for Long COVID Justice. Gabriel is a queer activist from Mexico City, living with HIV and ME and chronic fatigue syndrome. So thank you, Gabriel, for being here and welcome.
So hi, my name is Gabriel San Emeterio, and I am the National Organizer for Strategies for High Impact, and its National Network for Long COVID Justice, which includes groups led by and accountable to people with long COVID, with over 100 information about this at Long COVID Justice. Hola, me llamo Gabriel San Emeterio, soy el organizador de Strategies Nacional prolongado, que incluye grupos dirigidos por personas con COVID prolongado con más de 150,000. Puedes encontrar más información en longcovidjustice.org. I am a queer and disabled identified Mexican immigrant living with multiple complex myalgic encephalomyelitis, or MECF. Those syndromes are often seen in people with long COVID. The majority of my symptoms fluctuate, but I argue that it negatively affects my functioning, my daily functioning far more than HIV does. I'm lucky that I'm standing here today. And it's astounding the disparity in care and treatment options that exist between these two diseases. Soy una persona migrante mexicana identificada como queer y discapacitada, que vive con múltiples condiciones de salud crónicas y complejas, como el VIH y la encefalomielitis miálgica, o ME/CFS por sus siglas en inglés, que es un síndrome postviral que ahora se observa con mucha frecuencia en la gente que padece de COVID prolongado. La severidad de mis síntomas de encefalomielitis miálgica varía, pero relativamente mucho más que el VIH y es asombrosa la disparidad en la atención y las opciones de tratamiento de estas dos enfermedades. Quiero dar las gracias de corazón a todos los activistas y a grupos como ACT UP que continúan luchando para que el sistema me da acceso a los medicamentos que mantienen mi VIH. Por lo tanto, pero daré mi conclusión en los dos idiomas. I want to express my deepest gratitude to activists who try to set up and maintain systems that give me access to the medications that keep my HIV undetectable and untransmittable. We still need a cure, but in the meantime, HIV medications must be made available to every person living with the virus around the world. But patents that protect monopolies and high costs are among the main barriers to access treatment worldwide. Today, we face another pandemic with the same persistent issues. Patents standing in the way of making COVID-19 vaccines and treatments available to the majority of the world, all for sake of profit. Putting profit and the economy over people, over our collective well-being, has de-emphasized preventing infection as a public health goal. It has also fueled mainstream claims that there are only two possible outcomes following a COVID-19 infection, which are either death or full recovery. But we know that many people who survive the COVID infection, even one that is asymptomatic or very mild, are at risk for long COVID, a chronic, perhaps lifelong, and potentially severe condition. Many otherwise typically healthy individuals have developed long COVID, making this pandemic a mass disabling event. Data suggests that getting vaccinated against COVID-19 can reduce the risk of developing long COVID. That's yet another reason we must make vaccines available for all. And while vaccines and treatments are indispensable tools that should be available to all, avoiding infection and or reinfection should remain a top priority. What's even less recognized is that people living with HIV are at higher risk for both breakthrough infection if vaccinated and for developing long COVID. And while long COVID is an umbrella term for various post-viral conditions that we are seeing after an initial infection, many of the people living with long COVID meet the diagnostic criteria for myalgic encephalomyelitis. The main symptoms, not the only ones, but the main ones, are of these two post-viral conditions are post or even physical cognitive patients are stigma. Don't know training. Treating HIV and get them, even for low such as myself. There are widespread that are underdiagnosed, they don't think enough worth it. They're simple. What does COVID and as a or immunity lack of vaccine COVID-19 mitigation after like mass and to be covered by $1 fine in vaccine revolution en español. Estoy que ahora se que incluso amenazan la vida. Pandemia crónica, las personas que se ubican en tratamiento de tanto como nosotros merecemos vivir con VIH después de a comprometerte con la lucha por la justicia para y los derechos de los enfermos crónicos de todo el mundo, y a que nos comprometamos todos con la lucha por el acceso a las vacunas y el fin de los letales monopolios farmacéuticos. Gracias. I am here today to support millions of people with both MS and other conditions that are changing and even threatening. As our problems and people who survive acute COVID deserve resources, treatment, care, justice, after contracting the virus. The National Network for Long COVID Justice urges you to take our pledge. Pandemics are chronic. You can go to tinyurl.com/pandemicsarechronic to commit to the fight for disability justice and the rights of chronically ill people everywhere. And we commit to the fight for vaccine access and an end to deadly pharmaceutical monopolies everywhere. Thank you.
Fights ahead. Before we leave, before we wrap, if you're physically able and comfortable, we're gonna lie on the ground and do a dive. We have tombstones representing those lost countries around the world. So if you're comfortable,
So the Diane down there at representing the people who died due to lack of COVID access as well as COVID in different countries, different nations around the world.
I am a mild defender. I'm gentle. So, I've never. I mean, everybody's got more.
Sorry, guys.
Congratulations. You're latching onto an easy target.
Okay.
Hi. Before we close, I want to reiterate our demands here today. Thank you everyone for speaking. We're asking President Biden to lift vaccine patents. There's no reason a patent should get in the way of ending a pandemic. Lift vaccine patents, invest in global manufacturing capacity, equip the entire world with the resources they need to end this pandemic. If we don't do that, Omicron will not be the final variant. More variants are coming. We're entering year 3 of this pandemic. This entire situation is preventable, and I'm going to stop talking now to take a look at what's in front of us. These are global stakes for this fight.
Okay.
President Biden, please join us in this fight.
End the patents now! End the patent now! End the patents now!
End the patent now! End the patent now! End the patent now! End the patents now! End the patents now! End COVID monopoly! End
Monopolies. End COVID monopolies.
End COVID monopoly!
Yeah. Argentina, 127,000. Iran, 138,000 plus dead. U.S., 987 plus dead. India, 515 plus dead. Peru, 211,000 plus dead. Mexico, 320 plus thousand dead. Turkey, 96 plus thousand dead. Chile, South Africa, Philippines, Colombia, Indonesia.
Vaccine! Vaccinate the world! Free the 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 vaccine! Vaccinate the world!
And
Thank you everybody for being here. We're going to wrap up. Let's continue this fight, everybody. Thank you so much.
You can see from the numbers throughout globally, and I can be pretty sure that the numbers are undercounted. The idea of the vaccine being free and not just the monopoly with the pharmaceutical companies as another thing to make money off of should be freely available. And as they mentioned, it's like the pharmaceutical companies have more than made their money back for the percentage that they put in on the investment. Not to mention that a lot of the funds towards the research and development came from taxpayer dollars with the U.S. federal government. So, yeah, free the vaccine. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and take the stream down. I will be back up around 4. There is an event happening at Washington Square Park regarding Ukraine. I'll be up there. If anything happens in the meantime, I will go ahead and get information out to you, possibly stream it. But plans right now is 4 o'clock, Washington Square Park. Solidarity forever. See you guys on the front lines and have an amazing day.